Look, I am going to tell you the absolute truth today, and most of you are going to hate me for it because it ruins the fairy tale you have been told since you were 5 years old. Everyone asks me for the secret to getting rich, and when I give them the real answer, they look at me like I just told them the earth is flat. They want a magic button or a secret crypto coin that goes to the moon overnight. But that is not how the big dogs play. 10 years ago, people told you to buy a great company and hold it until you retire. And I am telling you right now that advice is officially a financial death trap in 2026. If you followed that old-school playbook over the last 2 years, you probably made 0% on software, while your friends made 70% on the NASDAQ. It feels like being the only person at the party who did not get the memo about the open bar while everyone else is getting drunk on gains. But here is the secret that Wall Street is hiding from you while they sit in their glass towers drinking expensive coffee. They have stretched the rubber band so far that it is about to snap back with a vengeance that will leave the skeptics crying. I am the guy who bought oil stocks 6 months before the Iran war started, and I did not do it because I have a crystal ball in my garage. I did it because I follow the money, and I am up about 60% on that play, while the Standard & Poor index is down single digits. I made 5 times more than the market because I stopped listening to the noise and started looking at the math of human greed and fear. Right now, the smart money is moving faster than ever from sector to sector like a bunch of hyperactive kids in a candy store. They hop from bucket to bucket, and the truth that nobody tells you is that Wall Street no longer buys stocks for their quality or their management. They do not care about the profits or the vision or how nice the chief executive officer looks in a suit. That time has passed, and all they care about now is momentum. And if you do not understand this, you will be left behind holding a bag of nothing. Software stocks have barely moved in 2 years, while the NASDAQ has exploded up by 70% in the same period. That has created a powder cake opportunity for us, and I am going to walk you through exactly how to light the fuse. The narrative on Wall Street is that artificial intelligence is going to kill every software company on the planet by lunchtime tomorrow. Hedge funds have bet $24 billion that software stocks would go down, and they have been making a killing on that fear. Imagine $24 billion on a single bet against an entire industry because they think a chatbot is going to replace every enterprise system. When that much money leans on one side of a boat, the whole thing gets lopsided and everyone starts panicking. But here is the thing about boats: when everyone is standing on one edge, it only takes a tiny shift to tip the whole thing the other way. This video is not about convincing you that artificial intelligence wins or loses, because frankly the math does not care about your opinion. This is about showing you how to potentially profit from what happens when $24 billion of short sellers have to run for the exits. Investing used to be like planting an oak tree where you buy a company and ignore it for 20 years while it grows beautiful leaves. But today the world changes too fast for that, because a company that looks like a mighty oak today can be chopped down to nothing in 24 months. If you just buy and hold one company forever, you might end up holding it all the way down to a price of zero. Don't marry the stock, marry the girl, because the stock will not send you flowers when it crashes. Wall Street has one simple rule you need to learn today, and that is follow the money. And I mean follow it like a bloodhound. I am holding a free live seminar this weekend called Why Buy and Hold is Dead in 2026, and What the Pros Do Instead. Grab a seat at buyandgrow.net, because the strategy that built your parents' wealth is going to set yours on fire if you are not careful. Now, let me teach you the framework that professional investors use to spot these massive gaps, which I call the rubber band effect. Human nature never changes, and neither does the math of the market, because it is all driven by the same primitive brain. Imagine a rubber band that you stretch really far in one direction until it is so tight that it starts to vibrate. The further you stretch it, the more pressure builds up inside, and eventually that pressure becomes too much for the material to handle. Then suddenly, snap, it whips back in the other direction even harder than it was pulled in the first place. Stock markets work the exact same way, because when everyone gets crowded on one side, the rubber band is at its limit. Right now with software, we are seeing a rubber band stretched about as far as I have seen it in my entire professional life. Professional investors know this, and they are sitting there with their fingers on the trigger, just waiting for the snap. There are 3 steps to spotting this before it happens. So pay attention, because I am about to save you 5 years of mistakes. Step 1 is figuring out how crowded one side of the boat really is by tracking something called positioning. This is basically a measure of how many people are betting up versus how many people are betting down on a specific stock. Normally this is pretty balanced, but in software right now the ratio has gotten crazily extreme and lopsided. We are talking about short selling at levels we haven't seen in years, which tells you that everyone who wanted to sell has already sold. There is no one left to push the price down, but there are millions of people who will eventually need to buy. Think about your own life for a second and ask yourself if you have canceled your Microsoft Office subscription lately. Probably not, because changing your entire software stack is a massive pain in the neck that most companies will avoid at all costs. The reality is that software is not going away, but the Wall Street fear machine has convinced everyone that it is dead. Step 2 is to look for the crack, which is the first sign that the boat is about to tip over in our favor. It is when the price of a stock breaks through a level where a lot of people thought it would stay below forever. Look at the major software index fund called XSW, which is trading exactly where it was in February of last year. It has done absolutely nothing at all while the rest of the market went to the moon and back. But it is starting to break through a level around $160. And that is the crack we are looking for. When an industry has been stuck for months and then suddenly breaks through a glass ceiling, it sends a signal to every algorithm on Earth. Step 3 is the scariest part for the losers, but the best part for us, and it is called forced buying. Once you spot the crack, all those people who bet $24 billion that software would go down start losing money fast. The only way for them to stop losing money is to close their bets, which means they have to buy the stock. They are not buying because they love the company or because the management is great. They are buying because they are being forced to buy by their brokers and their bank accounts. It creates a mechanical rush of buying that pushes the price up like a rocket ship in a vacuum. I remember when a car company called Avis did this, and the stock went up hundreds of % in a few weeks. It was not because they invented a new car, but because the short sellers got trapped in a room with only one exit. The simplest play for most of you is to buy an index fund, because it is the safer way to play a sector rotation. I am looking at XSW because it holds 136 of the leading software companies in America. If the squeeze happens, the whole industry goes up, and you do not have to worry about picking the one company that fails. If it does not happen, it probably won't go down as much as an individual stock because you are diversified. Now, I promised you 3 individual stocks that I am watching for this rubber band snap. Stock number 1 is CoreWeave, which is essentially a specialized cloud for artificial intelligence training. They do not build average websites, but instead they build massive data centers full of the most powerful chips on Earth. The demand for computing power is growing faster than anyone expected, and these guys have long-term contracts and massive backlogs. If you look at the chart, we have just broken out over the recent highs, and the big sell-off seems to be over. Stock number 2 is Big Bear A, and I am usually very cautious about companies with a I in their name. It reminds me of the dot-com bubble where people put .com on a lemonade stand to get $1 million valuation, but this stock is down 70% from its all-time highs. And I actually like that because the blood is already on the floor. They build software that helps the United States military and federal agencies process massive amounts of data. The defense budget for artificial intelligence is growing as fast as a wildfire in a dry forest. They have real contracts, and the stock seems to be bottoming out around $3. Stock number 3 is Unity Software, which is the engine that millions of developers use to build video games and simulations. They dominate the market for tools that create virtual worlds and digital twins for big industries like cars and architecture. The gaming industry is not shrinking, and Unity is streamlining their operations to finally reach real profitability. This stock has been punished and is down 87% from its peak, which is an insane level of fear. It appears to have found a bottom around $17.50, which is where it was a year ago. Each of these plays has a specific reason for existing, whether it is infrastructure defense or game development. Of course, there are many more layers to this onion, and you need to know when to sell and how to manage your risk. You cannot just buy these and forget about them, because the speed of technology is faster than your attention span. I used to see people talk about Nokia as the king of the world, and now kids do not even know what a Nokia phone looks like. Money has no loyalty, and it will leave you in a heartbeat if it finds a better place to grow. That is why you need to join me this weekend at buyandgrow.net so I can show you the full system. It does not matter if you are a total beginner or if you have been trading for 5 years already. The old playbook is burning, and you need to learn how to swim in the new ocean of momentum. Every single dollar you spend on a useless subscription or a fancy coffee is an employee you just fired. Stop firing your best workers and start putting them to work in the right sectors at the right time. Most people will watch this video and do absolutely nothing, and then they will complain when they are still broke in 5 years. Don't be that person who watches the NASDAQ go up 70% while your bank account stays at zero. The rubber band is stretched, and the crack is starting to show. So the only question is if you are ready. I am going to keep following the money, and I am going to keep looking for the gaps that Wall Street misses. If you got value from this, tell your friends or keep it a secret if you want all the gains for yourself. I will be live from France this weekend, so do not miss it because there will be no replays for the lazy. Get your research report at felixfriends.org/software, and I will see you on the other side. The world is changing fast, and the math is always the same, so stay sharp and stay hungry. Remember that wealth is not about how much you make, but how much you keep and how fast you grow it. Every minute you spend learning this is a minute you do not have to spend working a job you hate. I am going to go back to my hotel room in London and keep hunting for the next big move. Success is boring, and it is repetitive, and it is mostly just waiting for the right moment to strike. When the moment comes, you better be ready to move because the market does not wait for anyone. The big money is already moving, and I am just here to show you the trail of breadcrumbs. If you want to be a part of the next big rotation, then stop listening to your parents and start listening to the math. It is all just numbers and psychology in the end, and if you master both, you master the world. I wish you all the best, and I hope you make more money than you know what to do with. Just remember to be kind and stay humble when the millions start hitting your account. The road to wealth is paved with patience and lined with people who gave up too soon. Don't be one of the people who gave up because you were bored of waiting for the snap. The snap is coming, and it will be the most beautiful sound you have ever heard in your life. Stay boring, stay patient, peace.